Hi guys, welcome back. So as we get towards the Six Nations, I want to talk about the future of the Six Nations. What should it look like in terms of the nations that compete in it? Should there be 5 nations again, 6 nations, 7 nations, even 8 nations, and who should be those nations? I'm going to go through a number of different options, go through some for and against arguments, and I've put a link for a vote below. I want to know which option you guys would go for. This is your ideal future Six Nations or whatever it is, not what it should be right now or next year, but in the future, how would you like to see it all set up? So love to know what you think. Now, this is a complicated one. I'm probably going to pretty much read from a script on this one. Normally I do a little bit of both, but this one, forgive me if I'm looking down a little bit, reading some stuff, because there are some complicated options here. Now, the first option is pretty straightforward. Stick as it is. Six Nations with Italy. Maybe you like it as it is and it shouldn't change at all. So vote for that one if you think it is. But I'm going to go through in a bit more detail the options that change things up. So first of all, option 1. Italy, they go. The Italy expulsion, and it goes back to 5 nations. England, France, Ireland, Scotland and Wales. The fours for this, well, Italy's record is certainly dismal. If it was a league, they would be relegated. Or if it was a World Cup format where maybe they wouldn't qualify. And teams now look at games with Italy as almost certain wins. Now, hopefully that will change soon. It needs to change soon for Italy, but at the moment that is the case. And the jeopardy really is, can they pick up a bonus point or points difference, which isn't great for the look of the tournament, to be honest. And also teams will be often using the Italy game to rest players or rotate players, which is fine for development, but just undervalues that game a little bit no matter what you say. Now, the arguments against that is the Six Nations isn't a meritocracy. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's closed, it's relatively independent, and it's not subject to any higher authority apart from themselves when it comes to the structure of their competition. So whether Italy deserve to be in there or are good enough to be in there is actually irrelevant. And in addition, any premise of the Six Nations is focused on fairness, is a bit naive, to be honest. It's a business, it's a product, it's based around rugby, but that also includes the sponsorship, the advertising, the travelling, the other revenues. And Italy is a good source of interest and revenue. Italians and Italian fans are very interested. They travel. People love travelling to Italy. I think the scoreboard would have to reflect even more of a cricket score against Italy if they were going to be kicked out. So I don't think it's likely. And the monetary loss by dropping down to 5 nations just wouldn't make sense. They'd be so much weaker financially. My conclusion, virtually no chance of this happening, to be honest. It was talked about in years past. I don't think it's viable now. So I do not think we'll see a return to 5 nations, nor would I want it to be, but maybe you would. Anyway, option 2, we stay as a 6 nations, but we replace Italy with the old debate of Georgia. Georgia come back in. A little bit shorter discussion on this one. The force for this really isn't so much Georgia, it's more Italy. Italy have had over 20 years of trying to contend in the Six Nations and really haven't managed to, and it only seems to be getting worse. Not that they're a bad team, it's just the gap seems to be as big, if not bigger, than normal. So if it's fairness, maybe Georgia should be given a chance if you want to keep it a European competition. The againsts, well, like I mentioned before, fairness doesn't really come into it. It's incredibly low down the agenda, if on it at all. But Georgia, at best, rugby-wise, are equals to Italy. Probably not quite as good, actually. So you wouldn't really be gaining anything rugby-wise, probably. I mean, you don't know. Maybe if you gave Georgia a number of years and a decade or so in the competition, maybe they would get better than Italy, but it's a bit of a punt. Indeed, Italy, they've got 2 fully professional teams who compete fairly well in the URC as it is now. Georgia don't have club teams in a major competition like that. Like I said, maybe they'd get there, but it's a real punt. So if the Six Nations were to chain Italy for Georgia, they'd kind of be voting to lose a lot of money as well, because the commercial attractiveness of Georgia compared to Italy is a lot less. So I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's a goer. I probably wouldn't do it either. On pure fairness, should Georgia be given a crack? Maybe. But like I said, unfortunately, that's not really how things go. Now the next option is pretty interesting. It's staying as a Six Nations, but taking in South Africa instead of Italy. So Italy would go, South Africa would come in. What are the fours for this? Well, purely rugby-wise, it's got a fair bit going for it. You could keep your desirable Six Nations format, which is great. I like the Six Nations format, the 5 games. Everyone's playing on a weekend. You don't have any of those annoying rest weekends. But you probably improve the quality of rugby significantly. Or you definitely do, to be honest. The Springboks, they've been one of the best countries in the world ever. Maybe the best. Certainly world champions at the moment. Number 1 right now. It's going to be crazy with the intensity. It's going to be absolutely insane. All the participants will be capable of beating each other rather than Italy, who don't seem to be capable of beating anyone at the moment. And from a spectator's point of view, I think it takes it up a couple of levels. It's a really exciting option. The arguments against, well, simply, why would the Six Nations throw away a proven revenue generator like Italy? You're kind of almost throwing money away. Maybe they would make it back up with South Africa, maybe not, because, there isn't a lot of money in South Africa, to be honest. Even though South Africa is an amazing rugby team, I don't quite know how the financials would work out there. Money trumps everything, so if they think that they would lose money doing this, probably it wouldn't happen. And also, any option that involves South Africa, obviously, you would have a lot more travelling, although obviously you're not going between time zones, but you're still travelling a lot more. And also, it's no longer a European competition. So if that's something that's important for you, then that would be gone as well. My conclusion? Well, I think there's a stronger argument for this. If you were going to drop Italy, bringing in South Africa does make a lot of rugby sense. Financially, I don't know if it does add up, but certainly it's very interesting and one I'd be, keen to look into. So the next option is a bit of a variation on that. Italy stay. You keep their financial clout, but also South Africa get added. So you have 7 nations: England, France, Ireland, Italy, Scotland, Wales, and South Africa. So the fours, this is a high revenue generating option. Very powerful argument for the Six Nations, just adding in extra money, making them an absolute beast. They're already the biggest international tournament outside the World Cup anyway. If they added in South Africa, they'd be an absolute monster. Anyway, they get to keep the revenue-making attraction of Italy, but also add the rugby quality, and interest of South Africa, plus the revenue that comes with them. Against, well, travel again is an option, and the biggest one for me is format. You'd be fitting in extra games. 7 teams sounds like a bit of a pain in the bum, to be honest, to fit in. Let me know if you can think of a good format for 7 teams. Certainly, if everyone's going to play everyone, then it's going to take up more time, or you have less rest. You can't play your best teams all the time. It's interesting. My conclusion, it's a definite possibility, but how are they going to work this schedule? I don't know, with the extra game for everyone. My conclusion here is it's very, very interesting and definitely a possibility, but the real sticking point would be, how would they work out this schedule? Get it fair for everyone. Make sure that you have enough rest for players. I don't know how it's going to work. Let me know if you think it would work or would not. Okay, the final option is the 8 nations. This is where Italy stay. South Africa are added, but you add someone else as well. Maybe it's Georgia, but maybe it's someone like Japan. So you're really getting out there. It sounds like it's getting a bit out of hand, but it actually could be the answer, because if you're going to have 7 nations with that annoying format, if you went to 8 nations, no, the fours are, you could probably create 2 pools of 4 teams, and then some sort of semi-final and a final. You wouldn't have everyone playing everyone all the time, but it certainly would work, and it would work within the schedule. You'd have to rotate who was in those pools of 4 each year. Maybe you even reward the performances of previous years with seedings or something like that. And also another 4 is, it would be an absolute huge revenue boost. It would be an absolute monster. Against huge amounts of travel, especially if you're involving Japan, or would Japan come over to Europe potentially? I don't know. Or would you travel? Because obviously you've got South Africa involved as well. It's miles away from its beginnings. It's miles away from the Six Nations as is. And the pools means you would be missing certain fixtures. For example, not having an England versus Wales could be unthinkable. Anyway, guys, I've put the vote in the description below. Copy and paste that. Vote for the option you would like to see in the future as your ideal format for the Six Nations going forward, or however many nations you think it would be. Anyway, have fun with that, guys, and I will catch you next time.